It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley as we slide into a Wednesday. Gary, how are you?
Hanging in there.
Yeah.
At least I'm not Robert De Niro. My God, what a psycho. Seriously.
Seriously, even Al Pacino drove by and said, "Shut up, Bob." That was, and by the way, too, hoo-ah, hoo-ah, get out of here, go home. There was somebody, and I think they did it deliberately, who set off their car alarm, and it was just the honking car alarm, which most car alarms are. So he starts into it, and he's reading it. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, you're reading it. And he can't even read it straight. And I thought, well, no, of course. Here's a guy who's lived his entire adult life by a script. And it tells me you have no conviction because he couldn't even say the only thing that he could claim about Trump was he'll never leave. He'll never leave. He'll never leave. The left is having to, make up all this stuff, this fear. And he said at one point, listen, I'm not trying to put fear into you. Well, wait, maybe I am. And I'm thinking, of course you are. That's why you're there. Look, if you want to, I understand why he did it on the street in New York City, but I also don't understand at all why he did it on the street in New York City. He was trying to have a New York City moment, but the problem is right now, and it doesn't matter, even if people in New York City side with you, they don't care what you think. They really don't care what you think. Celebrities often, I will say this, like Robert De Niro, believe they're the king of their city. They believe everybody loves them to the core. It was like de Blasio, remember when he decided he was going to get into in the presidential race?
Yeah.
And all the liberals said, no, sit down. And De Niro is one of those same people that live inside their bubble. Every time he goes to a room filled with his peers, his colleagues, they're all just praising his name because he was in The Godfather. But let's face it, Pacino made The Godfather, not De Niro.
Well,
I look forward to your
De Niro
emails.
Was in Godfather 2, so.
I know.
Yeah, it wasn't.
But I mean
the
entire trilogy.
Right.
That's when you say The Godfather, it's really just one big movie.
It's
with a horrible ending. Part 3. But it's not one of these realities. It's not one of these. If he had come out and said, this guy believes these things, this guy believes these things, and therefore this is why you should support Biden. What I didn't hear is why he supports Biden other than not Trump.
Well, besides Trump is going to destroy the world.
Yeah, everything was anti-Trump, not pro-Biden.
Well,
he wasn't. There's nothing you can promote for Biden.
What I liked is when in the pre-show meeting when you said, "Wow, he was very Biden-like."
He was. That was
a great comment.
Well, because Biden often looks around the room and he's wondering why people don't understand the garbage that's falling out of his mouth, the rambling that's coming out of his mouth. And I think that's the word I used in the pre-show meeting. He was rambling a lot like Biden and looking around, wondering why people don't understand what he's trying to say. Because he was saying nothing.
I was really expecting him because you're saying, the country's gone, the world is gone. I was expecting him to say that's why the aliens are in Las Vegas. is because the aliens are worried that Trump is going to destroy the entire universe. Because you're saying, how are they going to try to up this? What's the upsell on this? They can't. They've already gone so far where the country's gone, the world is gone. So the next thing is the universe must be gone. But I will tell you this: I wish I could play some of the audio of the people screaming at him because it was some of the best stuff ever.
Was so good.
I mean, it was
so good. So here's the question.
There's too much cursing though in it.
Yeah, I know. And I was kind of cursing along with him. Blank yeah. But you and I kind of wondered about this. That Siena poll that showed the gap in New York, that showed the gap between Biden and Trump closing. Now it's still several points by the poll, but movement. That's all we look at, and we think of Lee Zeldin, right? When Lee Zeldin ran for governor, we think he did about as good as you can at that time, especially in New York, and it's one of those things where De Niro comes and people like that come out thinking and talking. This reminds me of Mellencamp. What was it, about a month ago? He's berating his own customers. You people, shut up, you bunch of nobodies. I mean, he didn't actually say that. I'm just kind of embellishing there. But I mean, going after the audience that made him rich and famous in a time when people were still buying music. And these things have me wondering on the New York thing. You saw the rally that Trump did. Was it a massive rally? No. In the South Bronx. It was a good turnout for the South Bronx. And it just makes you wonder where if
25,000 people is a big rally.
Was the head count 25,000?
That's what they're saying. Yeah,
is that what they're claiming?
He expected 3,000, and they said they had 25,000. I didn't see anybody dispute that.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't see the number 25,000.
Yeah,
because the pictures didn't look like anywhere near 25,000.
It looked huge.
Yeah, maybe. Then good. That's even better.
Right.
That's even better.
Some of the photos I saw. You're going to show me what photos you saw because that's interesting.
Yeah.
And again, it's tough because you don't know who's taking the photo and what the angle is and everything else.
And at what point the photo was taken.
Well, but the thing is, the number here, you know how I'm judging this? The number was 25,000 and the left didn't go crazy over the number.
Someone did.
Did someone do that? I mean,
I think it was a guest on Scarborough. And I think they were saying that it wasn't near as big as they claim it was, or something like that. Yeah.
But I'm looking back at, for example, the inauguration. Remember that with Trump?
Yeah.
And so the media went crazy on it.
Right. Yeah.
Not just somebody on Scarborough, because somebody on Scarborough is always going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's that you didn't have the entire left go, it wasn't 25,000, it was 15,000.
The mainstream media on that inauguration thing all got in line as if they were testifying at a Trump trial already, saying, nope, and they discounted everything. And so you're right. By the way, I really hope it was 25,000 because it makes my point even more. And it's a healthy turnout regardless. It's for the South Bronx. And I wondered to myself, I've been wondering, all right, the sentiment in New York, again, not that I expect New York to go red, not even close. However, does it not go blue to the extent that it went, that it's been blue forever? And I mean outside of the rural areas and all of that where there's plenty of Republican voters. I just wonder what you and I do. It's just the same question every election year, but this one is different. Trump is from New York. It really has a different feel to it. And I wonder how much the trial and the civil case have to do with what's going on. You said...
Okay, New York Post,
okay.
all right, which is more favorable towards Trump.
Yeah.
So you do have a point here. Former Bronx rally drew about 8 to 10,000 attendees, law enforcement said.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Law enforcement sources. The permit was for 3,500. Okay, and I'm looking at.
So are they going to charge him with another crime?
Campaign
finance.
Fraud.
Campaign finance. It would be a campaign finance law. You got.
Or Letitia James, it was fraud. You claimed it was this and it was not.
Yeah,
but there's no victim. Now we already won that one.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't.
It's Ed De Niro would tell you the victims are the people of America. Man, he just sounded pathetic. He really did. But I do wonder about the sentiment of very, the strongholds, the blue strongholds, and really, I think if anything, Biden for his rank and file voter creates more voter apathy, people staying at home, than he does converting them in terms of anything that would favor Trump. You couldn't, and I was waiting for De Niro today. I was like, no, say it. Tell me why people should vote. Okay, Trump is the devil. Okay, fine. Tell me why people should vote for Biden, and he didn't. He didn't. He said, in fact, he listed all the bad things about what he hates about Trump and said, that's why I'm joining the Biden campaign. And he couldn't promote and say, look at what he's doing, because if you say the economy's great, well, you're Robert De Niro. The economy's been great for you for 50 years at least.
I thought what hit me the most yesterday was, especially on social media, because social media drives stuff. That's online.
Sure.
I think this is a great question, and I don't know how you analyze it, but the question would be, does social media drive public opinion more than the mainstream media now?
Right.
And when did that point happen?
Yeah.
Because I will say that after I analyze social media, and most of it would be, for example, especially X, when I monitor and I have a feeling of a direction where the momentum is going, that's what I normally see a couple of days later reporting in the mainstream media.
Yeah. Right.
And
right.
So again, it isn't evidence, it's a feel, but I will say this, that what you saw on social media yesterday was the Trump campaign and the Trump surrogates going crazy about this happening, saying, well, this shows you that Biden is political. Biden claims this isn't about politics, but of course it's about politics, and this proves it. This just shows election interference. An hour later, it was like, wow, this was great. Thank you, De Niro, for coming out.
Exactly.
It was just fun. You saw such a change from the Trump surrogates on this, as if, oh, my God, this went from us accusing the Democrats of something that you might say, well, okay, the Trump campaign is fearful, to this incredible joy just an hour later going, wow, this is the best thing ever. Boy, did this ever blow up in their face.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty fascinating.
It really was, because I watched the video. I don't know if anybody even carried it live, but I watched the video a number of times, likely like you did. And about the third time I watched it, I thought, this is so bad. It's so laughable. And then one of our radio friends tweeted out, I think they retweeted or reposted on X somebody else's post about the car alarm going off, saying the person that set the car alarm off, because it sounds like it's deliberate. I mean, it's New York City. Car alarms are going off all the time. Maybe it just happened. But it just, right, he thinks he's about to be on a roll. He's on a roll. He's on his rant, and then all of a sudden, bam, bam, bam. I'm like, oh, my gosh, that was terrific. And you know what? It's indicative of the entire Biden campaign. They really can't do anything right. They get a celebrity. Think about this. Robert De Niro is an iconic celebrity. You can make that case. And he looked like an amateur. He looked like somebody you didn't know, and you would be wondering, why is this guy talking? Why is the media putting a camera in this guy's face? And then when he's talking, the content was zero. I mean, nothing.
Yeah, but I think it's his, and look, when he comments on anything, he sounds like a lunatic.
Well, that's a good point, because he's been doing this for a while.
He's full of rage.
Yeah.
He's angry, and he's been this way, for a while. Coming up here on the show, we'll continue this discussion. We'll hear from Jonathan Turley, tell you what Andrew McCarthy had to say, look at some of the commentary on CNN about the closing arguments. Interesting, Jonathan Turley was asked the question, if Trump is found guilty, can this be, can the appeal process and reverse it before the election? He said no. He goes, this is going to have to go through New York State, through the, up through the highest courts in New York State before it ever gets to the federal government. He said no way.
Right. Yeah, I think somebody else had made that point at some point.
But what he did say is, he doesn't believe that there will be an acquittal. He thinks the best chance would be a hung jury.
It's interesting. I thought to myself, that's it. That's probably the best shot.
He said hung jury or conviction. And
right,
he does.
Right. It's going to be one of those two.
That's what I believe. He has believed that it is going to be conviction.
Yeah.
He said, but and a lot of people said, but if the merchant is going to be raked over the coals by the higher courts if it is. So we'll get to all of that coming up. Plus your calls, your comments. Got a great show ahead. 866-90-RED-EYE.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Logging miles during the hot summer months can put a serious strain on you and your truck's health. Did you know pollutants and allergens in the air outside can enter your cab through the HVAC system without you even cracking a window? That's why it's important to check those cabin air filters. Not only do dirty cabin air filters contaminate the air you breathe, they can also cause major damage to HVAC components like blower motor resistors and AC compressors. Have your cabin air filter serviced if you notice less airflow than usual coming from the interior vents. This is a common sign that your filters are at the end of their life cycle. Breathe easy when the air in your cab is fresh.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Look, we all view things differently, but I will tell you this. The one thing that I got out of yesterday was actually not the trial stuff. It was underlying it, but it was simmering because Politico had it, and it was basically Democrats in full freakout. Now, that question was asked to Karine Jean-Pierre, but that seemed to me to be the thing. Of course, everybody's covering the trial, but that seemed to me to be the thing that you had everybody talking about. It might have been a secondary story, but when I almost said Pete Buttigieg, Pete Ducey asked that to Karine Jean-Pierre, you can tell she didn't like that question at all because she said, "Well, what are you talking about?" Well, Politico has a article, and Politico is a leftist magazine. I just thought that was fascinating yesterday.
And the pushback against Buttigieg on EVs over the weekend that we played, and
the audio cut,
So, I mean, when you look at freak out mode is kind of been building. It's for the left, and it makes you wonder. Well, what do they do next? I mean, they tried to get the one celebrity. They've got the one celebrity on board, Robert De Niro, and he blew it.
bringing on the chaos. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. You can listen when and where you want in case you can't listen live overnight. All right? All right. All right. All right. All right.
All right?
All right.
All right.
Let me see here. Oh, all right. All these people I'm going to quote here or play,
Okay.
not Trump fans. Okay?
Right. Okay.
And you're going, what? Well, because they're following the reality of what's happening. Number one, Karl Rove on the Biden campaign, throwing Robert De Niro out there.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, stupid mistake by the Biden campaign. While all the cameras were there, they wanted to get their moment in the sun, and it was a big mistake. It politicizes the trial. Better to have waited, and then what was said, with all due respect to Mr. De Niro, who's a wonderful, wonderful actor, Donald Trump wants to destroy New York, destroy America, and destroy the world. And if you reelect him, he's never going to leave office. He's going to make himself a tyrant for life. Are those the kind of credible statements that are going to cause people who don't like Biden and don't like Trump but are trying to figure out who to vote for? Are they going to cause people to say, well, geez, you now told me you wanted to destroy our country? Of course he did. The people who believe that are already in the Biden camp. And that's not who they should be trying to reach out to. What a stupid mistake on the part of the Biden campaign. More reason why Democratic leaders are probably going to be concerned that he's the likely nominee of their party. And that's why I said when I was watching the Trump surrogates coming out, and I'm not saying that they were wrong for doing it. I'm just stating what they did because I believe they were right to come out and say, because Biden's trying to make this whole thing, I'm going to make a statement from the White House no matter what, and I'm making it from the White House so it's not political. And it's just like, so politics isn't a part of it. Well, everybody knows politics is a part of it. They're not idiots.
Yeah.
And so then to do this, to come out and do this, and then the Trump campaign said, see, this proves it's political, it's political, it's political. And I think they were wondering, okay, how is this going to be presented? Will this hurt us? And like I said, an hour later, they were just laughing hysterically, going, oh, my God, this is blowing up in the Democrats' face. Because that was the scenes afterwards, especially the scenes after the one guy that was going crazy.
Yeah.
At De Niro.
Yeah.
Throwing stuff left and right. Oh, my.
Yeah.
The thing, I wish we could play it, but there was just too much profanity on it.
Yeah.
That.
And even if we bleeped it out, you would miss most of it.
Yeah. Bleep, 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 bleep,
bleep, bleep.
Or just be bleep.
Yeah. It's just a 1K tone.
But it was actually pretty humorous.
Yeah.
But looking, number one, at let's take a look. Jonathan Turley was asked a question that we brought up earlier, and then he went into a few other things. But he was asked by Brett Baer last night, and it still wasn't over. The test, they finally 5 hours. And by the way, most legal experts looked at that and said, if the prosecution has to go 5 hours, there's a problem. They're worried that they can't convince a jury. And so they were talking about this on Brett Baer yesterday on Fox News and asked the question of Jonathan Turley that if Trump is found guilty, will an appeal be able to be done and completed by November? Here is some of that from yesterday. Here we go.
Well, first of all, I think that of those options, an acquittal is fast moving outside the realm of possibility. I think it's just extremely unlikely. I think the choice between a hung jury and an outright conviction, I still think that this is such a weak case, one has to give a nod to a hung jury. But if there is a conviction, and that would not necessarily surprise many of us, no, I don't think that this could make it through an appeal before the election, at least to its final to a final appeal, you can't just, I think, leap over the New York appellate system, try to get to the Supreme Court. There are many, in my view, reversible errors here. I think they're very serious. I think that Merchan is not going to be able to correct all of them in these instructions. And every indication is that, so far, is that these instructions will greatly favor the prosecution. And as Shannon said, there was a huge disadvantage in this system of having the defense go first. For most of us who don't practice here, it's almost unthinkable because it means the defense can't respond to some of these really sweeping statements, in my view, improper statements being made by the prosecutors. They will also have an advantage by going long today. They may try to run this towards 8, which means that if the drop dead date or time is 7, the last thing this jury will hear before instructions will be an hour of their closing argument. That's ideal for the prosecutors. So I think for the defense, they'd like to run this as late as necessary to keep the prosecution from getting the last word right before the instructions.
That was the one question I got from my friends yesterday. They said, why is the defense going first? I go, that's New York.
Yeah, it's because the defense should have had the opportunity to go last and say they proved nothing. But you've got the prosecutor here, Bragg's prosecutor, basically just making the case, and he at some point said, there is no special law for the defendant. We're waiting for you to identify any law that was broken. And that seemed to be the underlying, on the closing argument from prosecution, that underlying theme. They're just, he's not above the law. He's not above the law. Which law would that be?
This is CNN yesterday and their legal experts. Here we go.
Andy, what Michael's getting at is the burden of proof is an important one to remind everyone. It's on the prosecution, right? They need to prove beyond reasonable doubt that Donald Trump broke the law. And you think, after listening to all of this, you think they fell short. How?
They fell way short because let's start with reasonable doubt. What is reasonable doubt? And it's not simply a doubt based upon reason. Anytime a human being needs to make an important decision in life, if you have enough information, for example, doctor says you need open heart surgery. Doc, go ahead and schedule. I don't have a reasonable doubt. Conversely, if I say, I appreciate it, but I need a second opinion, I need more information, that is having a reasonable doubt. There is reasonable doubt all over this case. Where is Keith Schiller? Where is Alan Weisselberg? How did Michael Cohen get away with stealing $30,000? Hold a pity party for him. Made $4 million on this. Thought he'd be chief of staff. He's a fixer. If the plumber comes to my house to fix my leak, I could be home. That doesn't mean I know how he's doing it and what it's taking to be fixed. Stormy Daniels, let's hold a pity party for her. Why do we need to know whether or not the former president wore a condom or not? It's simply about, did the former president know that books, his records, false entries, for legal fees, Michael Cohen was his lawyer. Did he intend to cover up the election or to protect his family? It's everywhere.
Yeah. Of course it's everywhere.
Well, yeah.
Because there's no crime.
Right.
And then Andrew McCarthy. And again, all these people are not Trump fans. Listening to the prosecution's summation, it is quite amazing how explicitly the state is relying on violations of the federal elections campaign law as the other crime that Donald Trump was allegedly concealing by causing his business records to be falsified. It is impossible to draw any conclusion other than that Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg knew that as a state prosecutor, his enforcement of federal law would be incredibly controversial since he has no such authority. The federal agencies that do have such authority investigated Trump and opted not to prosecute. And to get this prosecution done, Bragg is simply making up his own version of federal law. Bragg had the collusion of Judge Merchan. By the way, Andrew McCarthy, if you know his history, I read the entire book, Ball of Collusion. But if you know his history, he doesn't throw out over-the-top rhetoric. Everything he does is based on law.
Yep.
He goes, Bragg is simply making up his own version of federal law. Bragg had the collusion of Judge Merchan, who allowed the state to get away with not putting the other crime in the indictment and rejected defense attempts to force him to provide explicit disclosure pre-trial. Prosecutors hid in the tall grass until summation and are now emphatically describing Trump as having blatantly violated federal campaign law, which he did not.
Yeah.
It's really amazing.
It is just so horrible. It's so horrible. You know what's interesting is Dennis Quaid was on Piers Morgan's show.
We'll have that audio coming up,
and you'll hear the difference between whatever De Niro was trying to say and what Dennis Quaid says. There's a clear difference in how and what they say about their candidate, about who they're supporting, who they're going to vote for. And it tells me, look, it's not that the that the world starts or ends with Dennis Quaid's opinion. But if it doesn't matter who it is, whether they're a celebrity or not. If they're talking about someone they're going to support, we've been waiting for somebody to tell us why you would support Biden. I mean, we know the whole not Trump. But why Biden? I mean...
The peer?
Yeah, right. Oh, my gosh.
We'll get to
Going to
that.
get to that.
Oh, my gosh.
Seriously. I mean, is everything that he's touching now breaking? I mean, everything is broken. I'm blanking on her name that said that a few years ago. Everything is broken.
Peggy Noonan.
Peggy Noonan. Thank you. And sorry, Peggy. It's was a long day. And
no excuse. This is work.
I shouldn't forget Peggy Noonan's name. But it's everything he's touching along the way is breaking. And it just seems, again, that we're at this point in Politico. Democrats are in freak-out mode. And that freak-out mode is important because it tells you they can no longer get by on the abstract. They can't sell the abstract. You know what's stupid? They're trying to sell the current economy as if it's in the abstract. Everything's great.
Yeah, you're right.
The economy's great.
No, that's a great point.
And it's not. It's reality at everyone's doorstep every single day. Families trying to figure out, what are we going to do?
No, to phrase that, because this would be a great phrase, something we've talked about, that the problem that Democrats have is not with the Republicans. The biggest enemy they have is reality. And we've talked about that in the past, Democrats have been able to sell the abstract. For example, minimum wage will have no, raising the minimum wage won't have any effect.
Right.
In fact, it will create jobs. I mean, you're throwing out false economics. The spending that we're doing is not going to cause inflation.
Right.
And we've seen all those things aren't true. If you increase expenses and you spend money, it causes inflation. Gavin Newsom's finding it out. See, they're backing off on the $25 an hour minimum wage for healthcare workers now in California.
Right.
Oops. Sorry, apparently we just can't raise it as far without having economic consequences.
Right.
And yeah, you're right. On the economy, they're still arguing the abstract.
Right.
When reality's hit.
Reality is here.
That's a great point. That's a solid point. And it came from you.
I know. I'm pretty shocked. I'm actually sitting up straight right now.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here. I'm just reading this headline. Philip Klein, National Review. Biden's Gaza pier is a disaster we're expecting. We'll hear from a Hollywood actor on Trump.
All right.
You want to hear it?
Yeah, you want to hear it?
You will want to.
You'll want to hear this.
More on Fauci.
Wow.
Wow.
Seriously.
Yeah. We'll get to that and a whole bunch more. 866-90 Red Eye.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Very quickly, Eric, you and I have had this talk. Really, off the air, I don't know if we've talked about this on the air. I know off the air in the last week we talked about it in our pre-show meeting and maybe our mid-show meeting.
Mm-hmm.
The polls I don't need to see. I could care less about the odds. What the odds makers are doing.
Yeah, I don't care about that.
Yeah, when I go to interactive polls on X, that shows you a ton of the different polls out there.
Yeah.
They always have the odds. I don't care about the odds.
None of that interests me. I don't even know why it's. I mean, unless you're making a habit of betting on it, and I wouldn't. And there are so many things too that kind of that play out during an election season, especially as we get closer and closer to convention. Typically, you'll see it, and then the online polls, which, it's, and now on X, people can put up their own polls, and which is kind of interesting to see, but it's really not, it's no way to gauge the sentiment of the American voter. And really the only way to do that is a likely voter poll. And, I would like to see this, though. You mentioned something last hour about the media versus social media, and where is the influence now? What's the driver now? And I'm with you. I think there's a case to be made that really social media and it's, I don't want to say and give too much power to X or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever, but it's the interaction that's done through those forums and how people communicate directly, and it's constant. That's the difference. Is that we used to feels zombie like. Okay, we're going to have to wait until 5 p.m. to find out what happened today. And now everything that's happening is happening all the time, and it's happening in real time with the American voter. And we know that Scott Rasmussen's people listen. It's how he came to be a guest on our show. We love Scott Rasmussen, very talented and knowledgeable pollster. We're just going to ask him one more time to do another thing, and that is to gauge. I wonder if there's a way to gauge or do a poll as to where people are getting. It would be tricky because if you say where do they get their news, I mean, I go back to the Daily Show with Jon Stewart, right? Most young people are getting their news from the Daily Show. Well, that's not news. Where are they finding out about the issues? How are they finding out about the issues? And of course, it's all in the wording with the pollster.
The other polls I think are just useless. Stop with the head-to-head polls. It's not a head-to-head election.
No, it's not.
Why put something that doesn't not reflect the reality of this election? It doesn't make any sense. So get rid of those And the other thing is, it's the other most useless poll that's done, the congressional job approval.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because it doesn't matter. Well, I don't like Congress at all, but I like my congressperson. Well, that's all that matters.
That's how it's supposed to work.
You don't sit there and say, well, what do you think overall of Congress?
Yeah.
Because if I think of Congress, I'm going to think of the Democrats in the Senate, and if a Democrat thinks of Congress, they're going to think of Republicans. You're not thinking about your own particular congressperson.
You're thinking about what the problems are in Congress,
Right.
which are, and sometimes it might be the person you voted for, but it's depending on what district or state you live in. But I mean, it's not. It doesn't really. It's not a way to gauge.
And I think every time they do the direction of the country, they should say, wrong track or right track. Why is it on the wrong track?
Right.
What's your number one reason that it's on the wrong track? Because you don't get anything from just that number.
Right.
And just like the congressional approval, you don't get anything from that number. Just like the head-to-head, you don't get anything from that number. So I don't even care, honestly, I don't really care about the actual head-to-head nationwide.
Right. Yeah.
Or the numbers nationwide don't even matter. What you want give me the purple states.
Yeah.
Give me all the purple states or ones that are close to being a purple state, and that will give me and make them all likely voters now and give me a better indication of what's going to happen. But that's just a personal thing because I went to Real Clear Politics, and the first thing I see is congressional job approval, and I'm like, stop wasting my time. And then I go, Trump versus Biden head-to-head in Michigan. Stop it. You're wasting my time.
Yeah.
Then next thing, direction of the country. Wrong track, 31%. Stop wasting my time.
Right.
Now, the direction of the country does tell you that people are disenchanted, but you need to know what they're disenchanted about if you're going to do those polls.
Well, because you're always going to have a significant portion of the country that's disenchanted. That's just the way it's always worked. It's been that way. And if you can't describe why, if you can't cite the reason, then it really doesn't. And even when we get into, if they said the economy, I mean, you and I would understand it. Or actually, let me walk that back a little bit. I would assume it would be inflation. But for someone in California, it might be different. It might, okay, the economy, what about the economy? Is it, you mean the price of everything? I'm assuming that is the case because inflation affects everyone. But I'm with you on that because it's a right track, wrong track. That's like thumbs up, thumbs down. That doesn't tell me anything.
Well, I mean, and I continue with the things that irk me when you get some liberal economic pundit. We don't understand why people don't see how great everything is. You talked last hour about, and I thought it was a great point, where you said they're still talking abstract and reality is hit.
They're talking, especially with the economy, they're trying to sell the current economy, the current state as the abstract, as if people can't see how good it is when the reality is very clear.
Well, I did see that consumer confidence is up because people believe they're going to have a job, but the inflation numbers are like record levels. They're worried about inflation and the fact of how they can afford to live.
Right.
And so it's like well, of course, people say, well, at least I can pay off my bills, or I can pay most of my bills. But the fact is, if you have a recession, as we've always stated before, and we warned the Democrats on this a long time ago, that inflation is worse than a recession.
Yeah.
Because inflation affects everyone. Mm-hmm. Everyone is affected by inflation. Everybody sees the higher cost. And just because other people make more money doesn't mean that they're happy with inflation.
Right.
Oh, I make $500,000 a year. I'm okay with inflation.
Yeah.
Nobody's okay with inflation.
Right.
And that's the problem, is that it affects it affects everyone. But yeah, those are just some of the things that irk me just a little bit. But
Well, because we talk about how expensive it is, and it is for pollsters, right? A registered voter poll is apparently less expensive to conduct than a likely voter, and that's because a likely voter, I'm guessing, takes more time to qualify the respondents, and so that's what it comes down to. And then we get into it; we would break the bank immediately, and because we want to get into, well, can you name the 3 branches of government? We want to qualify the respondents on so many levels that it would be way too costly to do it. And I'm thinking to myself, but look at all the money, time, and effort they're spending on right track, wrong track thing. Why are you spending any money and time on that? Seriously. I mean, that's not even as interesting as a Twitter poll to me, or X poll to me. At least I get a little bit of entertainment out of one of those polls someone will post on X. But you and I get into this mode, and a lot of people do what we do, and critical thinkers do as well, leading up to the election. What are people thinking? What is driving everybody? But right now, what is driving the rank and file voter on the left? And it's
that's
anti-Trump, but beyond that, is there anything else? Not that that's not a big driver. It is, but what's driving them?
It's very tough. You don't really hear anymore, and I'm talking about, this is my personal experience from looking at when Obama was president, and the number of people that I know on social media that would be actively promoting it. And then in 2016, when it was Trump against Hillary, they would still be out. You and I also remember the days early. We were working together. It would have been over 2 years, because I believe it was, I'm trying to think, was it 2008 that we asked just for Democrats only, and our phones went nuts?
I think it was 2008, not 2012.
It was it was definitely 2008, because it was Hillary against Obama, and so we had been together 3 years at that point, and we were just shocked by how only one person called, because we kept saying, listen to all these calls, nobody will talk about an issue. It was, no, we need the first woman president. No, it's more important that we get the first black president. And when we mentioned it, we said, this is amazing how no Democrat will bring up one issue. And then finally somebody called up and said, I believe that Biden will keep us out of wars more than Hillary. And we went, okay, finally we got some. But that was the only one. Everybody else was identity politics, black versus a woman. Right. And it was like, wow.
Right.
But now it's every single Democrat. The only one, I had one Democrat friend, just throw out, not anything specific on the issues, just like when Stormy Daniels was testifying, it's a stormy day for Trump. You got a couple of likes, and that was it. It was really like nobody really cared.
Right.
Not even, his Democrat friends. And Democrats used to talk. Democrats, this is the interesting thing. Democrats have just, the rank and file voter have just gone quiet. You don't know what they're thinking. You don't know what their mindset is. And I'm talking about on a national level, and especially on a personal level with all the Democrats that I know. There's nothing. They just don't talk at all.
Right. Yeah. And that's, indicative of voter apathy, and we'll see if that turns out to be the case in November. Again, the hate for Trump or the fear of Trump or anything in between is a huge motivator, but we'll see how much of that is gone? We've talked about the toxicity of Trump. It has eroded not to zero, but it's not what it was in the past.
Well, number one, Trump was president for 4 years.
And the economy was doing well.
Right. And so when you have, and I thought you made a great analysis about De Niro. He sounded very Biden-like, just off the wall, like when Biden gets angry. But
and then confused as to why nobody understands what he's saying. Yeah.
Right. But De Niro just, the world's going to end, the country's going to end, the world's going to end.
Yeah.
Everything's going to end.
Yeah.
Well, Trump's already been president for 4 years.
Yeah.
If Trump wasn't president, you might be able to get away with it, but Trump was president for 4 years, and people look at it and they go, well, I was doing better back then, and I still had my freedoms.
Yeah.
And so I don't buy what you're saying. The only people you're attracting are the left lunatics. And
Right.
a lot of the left lunatics are abandoning the Democrats because of Israel.
Right.
You don't hate the new virtue signaling for Democrats and the far left. I hate Jews more than you do.
Right. It is.
I know. I'm not. Somebody might go, that's over the top. No, it's not.
Because we
Not
talked
over
about
the
in
top.
2020, it was, I hate Trump more than you do, the virtue signaling going on during the primary season for the Democrats in 2020. That was going to be the virtue signaling. And now, for the radical left, it is. I'm more anti-Semitic than you are.
Right.
Wow.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
After fuel, an owner-operator's second biggest variable cost is tires. To save, get as much life out of them as possible with good habits. Maintain proper inflation. It's free and easy, yet it's the highest saving maintenance you can perform on the truck. Improper inflation is by far the greatest reason tires fail early. Perform routine maintenance. If a technician can by hand initiate irregular movements in tie rod ends, kingpins, wheel bearings, and torque rods, that spells trouble. Fight irregular wear by replacing suspension components. On the steer axle, change your shocks at least as often as you change your tires. On the drive axle, replace shocks halfway through the tire's life, and when the tires are changed too. Finally, employ good driving habits. You have full control here. More conservative driving over rough surfaces helps reduce wear. Speeding, hard braking, curbing, and tight turns cause tires to wear fast. On the other hand, steady acceleration, braking, and steering can extend the life, saving a bundle. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section on the website for more details on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up, this is a story that really yesterday that was brought up to Karine Jean-Pierre and all that, and I thought this was the story simmering underneath the Trump trial. Now, of course, the media is going to cover the Trump trial, but the Politico, Democrats in full-blown freakout over Biden from Politico, which is a liberal publication.
Yeah.
One advisor to major Democratic donors keeps a running list of why Biden could lose. Well, they should have been concerned for a significant period of time based on the issues and the positions that the president has taken.
Yeah.
They should have been screaming a year ago or 2 years ago.
Right.
And saying, we can't win if we do this. Now, all of a sudden, it's like when the polls have shown from on the issues for years now because it's been 3 years since he's been president. So for years, we can use the plural there, that people aren't happy with the direction that the Democrats and the president wish to go on the issues.
Yeah.
It's only been the personality of Trump that was in the past helping Biden, and now that's moving in a different direction. And we'll hear from a Hollywood actor who states his reason why he's going to vote for Trump.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating, but we'll get to that Political article. Plus, Biden's Gaza pier is the disaster we're expecting. Wow. Coming up.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara.
I did. I'm telling you. And because I thought to myself, I asked this question because we're clearly going to talk about it to myself over probably a few times over the last few weeks. And then my answer was, I answered my own question with a question. And my answer question was, Eric, are you smoking weed?
Well, but and everybody's
And the
like,
answer is no, I'm not.
Everybody's like, what are you guys talking about? Come on, get to the point.
Okay.
The point is, and this is just because I was looking at the article from Politico that the Democrats are in full freak out mode about Biden. It was a question that was asked to Karine Jean-Pierre, and you know this isn't going anywhere. They thought this election was going to be done a month ago when the trial started with Trump. Now the question is, and the question really is, if Trump is convicted and found guilty, and let's say he goes to prison, they have him in handcuffs, will the blowback against Democrats be even greater? And so I came up with this, that they are so right now panicking in the White House. If Trump is found, because think about this, if Trump is found guilty, this thing's going to be overturned eventually.
Right.
And Merchan's, going to be, it's going to be, he's going to go through the ringer, the judge. And the prosecutor is also. How do you stop all of that being in the freak out mode that the Democrats claim, the Democrat media claims the administration is in right now? And we know from the White House, Biden is going to speak, and it will be scripted. It's already, I'm sure they've scripted it already. It's whether he is found not guilty or guilty. Is there a possibility that Biden, in desperation to win the election, will give a pardon to Trump? Thing is, though, he can't if it's a state violation. But if they go for the federal, if they attempt to do federal law, could Biden be a hero and say, I'm going to pardon Trump? This way it doesn't go any further. It's done. It's over. If they decide, if the jury decides, okay, we're going to convict Trump of the federal crime, which they can't do. But if they do that, is Biden so desperate that he would give a pardon for Trump on the federal charges that the state has no business charging? I mean, it's just
right.
It's so insane.
Well,
but then he would come off as reasonable and caring about the country more than Trump. that would be their goal. I'm not making
Right.
that statement.
Well, because
that would be their goal. I'm not
because
that's
you
not
think
my statement.
You think of then the political fallout from doing that, if it were to happen, and I put a very tiny chance on it, less than 1%, but it's very interesting to look at. What would be the political fallout for him from his own side? Well, the radical left does not want to vote for him because even though he's done more for Hamas than anyone, and I mean during his presidency than any president ever, they're still not satisfied with him because he's not radical enough. He endorses them. He endorses the radicals. They're not endorsing him. They're not reciprocating. So where's the political fallout? It would be, I guess, those Democrats that would look at this and go, "Oh my gosh, is he completely out of his mind? I mean, is he just lost it completely?" And then it would be, because...
Well, no, the reason I would say that is history shows presidents will pardon other presidents.
Yeah, right. No, that's kind of where I am in the process of it. But then the political fallout. The Democrats don't want Biden already. The majority of them. Would this gain a little bit back from independence?
Well, Biden could promote this and say, "I've told you from the beginning, none of this is political. It is the justice system. Now justice has been done, and now I pardon Donald Trump so we can get on with the business of the country." So at the same time saying Trump has been
found guilty,
been found guilty, it's Biden, not the courts, that come back later on and absolutely blast this political.
No, go keep going.
The political war, the lawfare against Trump, it blows it out of the water. It shows a compassionate Biden who all along was saying none of this is political, and he is the president for all Americans. Because they're desperate, they can't win on the issue. So where do you win?
And then
you actually help it because the courts never get involved in totally destroying Bragg and Merchant and saying this was this was basically a banana republic.
Right.
Biden will sit there and say there's been talk that it's been a banana republic. It's not a banana republic because we are doing the right thing. Justice has been done, and now we will pardon Donald Trump.
Look, just as many of us on the right looked at it, and we, with the Hillary thing, the whole no reasonable prosecutor and having the illegal server in her house and all that, no one is above the law, and a lot of people weren't satisfied because she never went to prison. Well, she also never became president. And for us, that was the bigger prize, is that she did not become president. You look at what the Democrats would have. So let's just walk this through, okay? We're not smoking weed. We're not drinking.
By the way, I was thinking the same thing. Somebody's going, is Gary smoking weed?
I have a Diet Mountain Dew and some coffee and some water. That's it. Yeah, you've got your Atkins
strawberry shake.
Yeah, I ran out of protein shakes and I'm freaking out. By the way, so now, all right, he pardons him. Right, you let that steep for, I don't know, a day or two. You get into the summer. And then your surrogates, Biden surrogates, go out and go, yeah, but he's guilty. He had to be pardoned. He's a pardoned president because he's guilty of a crime, and we all know it. The jury found him guilty. He's guilty, 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 and they use it just like he was impeached twice. He's found guilty of a crime, and yeah, he didn't go to jail because President Biden did the right thing for the country.
Right,
but we all know he's guilty.
Right,
he's guilty, guilty, guilty,
yes.
and he would be a pardoned president. Nobody wants a pardoned president. That would be their train they would jump on.
Since nobody has brought that up, that thought went through my head, and
I've
said,
been thinking of it, and
why not throw it out there for discussion?
I honestly, I was going to call my doctor about it because it was going through my brain. I was like, what are you thinking? Because I didn't actually entertain it to the fullest as we do and vet this whole idea. I don't think it's going to happen. But that's how they would use it. Because you do it, Biden comes out, he addresses, just step to the podium, no questions. I told you from the beginning this is not political. It's not. He has been found guilty by a jury of his peers. The system did work, but I'm going to be, for the sake of the country, I'm going to pardon him.
We need a united country.
We need a united country.
And a way to unite this country together is to end this now.
Right. And then and again, you let it steep for a week or two and let the media go, what? You talk about freak out mode. And then after, probably, you don't even wait that long. You have, name your Democrat, Schumer, any of them, on the Sunday morning news shows. Yeah, but we all know he's guilty. He was found guilty by a jury of his peers. Right. He's guilty of the crime. He's guilty because you never let it get to the appeal.
You never let it get to the appeals court.
In order to shred the case the way the appeals process would in this case, we believe. So you never let it get there. You let the guilty verdict live on forever.
Right.
Even with the pardon.
Yep.
You let it live on forever, and politically, it's not a horrible idea. I mean, for the Democrats, it's all they got. It's nothing on the issues, but they can make Trump the bad guy because he would be found guilty forever. It's the pardon. Forget the pardon. Forget jail time. Again, a lot of people on the right, Hillary should have gone to jail. She should have been in jail. Yeah, but she wasn't president. And that's more meaningful than her sitting around a jail cell.
Well, you get to forever indict Trump for being found guilty and give yourself a better chance of being president of the United States.
So you got 2 impeachments and guilty verdicts that live forever.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I don't know if it's enough to save Biden, but if they are that desperate, if their Democrats are full freak out mode, and the campaign is, I was sitting there thinking yesterday, what would be politically the best thing to do? Because Biden is not known as a uniter at all. You can tell by where people stand on the polls and his presidential rating right now. I can see it. Washington Post. This proves that Biden has risen beyond the partisan politics that exist today and wish to unite the country by pardoning that evil man, Donald Trump, who was found guilty of these felonies. You never let the appeals courts or the Supreme Court get in on this, and absolutely and by the way,
it would only be people on the right saying that the appeals would have shredded this whole thing and it would have been tossed out and it would have been turned over, overturned.
You still keep the other cases going. The other cases are going, and if you're reelected again, then you don't pardon him if he's found guilty in those.
Oh, right, those other ones you don't pardon him.
You don't pardon him at that point. That was the thought going through my head. And so you sit there and you stop the lawfare here, but you keep the lawfare going on the other side. There is no analysis from the media, from appeals courts, whether it's state or federal, that come and destroy Bragg and destroy Merchant. You protect that. You protect that in New York City. You protect New York State, because this is where this is all coming from, Bragg, Felicia James, whatever.
And if if this is a tactic from the Biden campaign, I don't think he'd have a problem. It would take a minute on the conversation, but he could get Governor Hochul on board with this. I mean, you have, the governor that, because it's New York and the whole thing. And so you're starting this whole, hey, we rise above all of this. Look how petty Donald Trump is. He would never do this. And
Right.
He's been found guilty, but he's found guilty, branded guilty forever because the appeals process never played out. Wow.
Now, here's my question. Can the appeals process still play out? Can Trump go and say this needs to be thrown out, that the pardon?
Would the appellate court just look at it and go, it's been pardoned?
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah, but you haven't
or do you
been
go
found.
through it?
Yeah.
Hmm.
I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah.
I hadn't fully, we just had those questions there, so haven't fully thought it out. 866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Yeah, to the person who tweeted it to us, we saw Mark Levin's post on where he said that his one legal expert he knows says it could go directly to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening. Maybe that's a possibility. It could, but I don't see that happening.
Right.
An appeal that quickly.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. Welcome and good morning. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Where are we, Wednesday?
It is Wednesday. Hey, I want to let people know, Gary, just real quick, I'm going to be at the Shell Rotella Super Rigs this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. It's going to be at Texas Motor Speedway. If you want to see some really cool-looking big rigs, come on out. Going to give out some prizes on Saturday for the winners, but it's going to be great. It is a rain or shine event. Keep track of the weather, though, if you're outside, as this time of year it can get severe, so you want to make sure you keep track of the weather. It did yesterday morning. Wow.
Yeah, it certainly did.
And but I'm going to be out there Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. This will be my 24th year judging at Shell Rotella Super Rigs. You can go to rotella.com/super rigs to find out more. It's a great event. Love talking to, and it is about working trucks. The couple of the show trucks do make an appearance, and we welcome them because they look great. But this is about the working trucks. You would be amazed to see how beautiful they are, and then hear about the tough jobs that they do. Of course, with the men and women behind the wheel of those trucks, many of them have become my friends over the years, and I'm very grateful about that. And it's a great event. It's going to be good, and we're raising money for the St. Christopher Fund, and you can find out more, in fact, about that if you just go to rotella.com/super rigs, and it's just a great event, just a really, really great event. More on our website as well, redeyeRadioshow.com. But I will be out You said yesterday, or during our pre-show meeting, you said, or at some point during the show, you said, yeah, can you imagine if the guilty verdict, comes down? And I said, yeah, we're going to, that'll be crazy that we're covering it. I won't be on the air.
I didn't say when a guilty verdict. I said,
I'm sorry. Did I say when?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
And
that's how much confidence I have in this jury. But it's it will be chaos because it will be a historic moment when this country officially, or I guess it's not officially, but essentially becomes a banana republic. But I won't be here on the air Thursday and Friday morning. We'll be at the event and having some fun, and hopefully the rain will hold off.
Well, let me just say that when I said that Biden, I wouldn't be surprised if, or just think of the possibility if Biden decides on the federal charges, because they're so bogus.
Yeah,
the federal charges are gone, and I don't see how you even do the misdemeanor charges. I don't know. The federal charges, nobody even knows specifically what they are. So when I saw that Biden was going to make a statement as soon as the verdict came in, either way, first thought in my head was he's going to pardon him, because it takes the two-tier system of justice as the emotional, because it will be, if Trump is found guilty, I think the blowback from Democrats, the blowback against Democrats will be huge. And I'll play something here in a couple of seconds here from a Hollywood actor who says that's the reason that he's voting for Trump is because of the lawfare and the Constitution not being followed. Biden, I looked and said, okay, Biden takes that away by pardoning Trump. Now, I don't know. I was looking up, if you're pardoned, can you still appeal the conviction outside of the pardon? Most people probably don't do that because in most cases, you probably are normally pardoned years after you've committed the crime and it's gone through the appeals process. But if Biden does it now, it really doesn't matter because the appeals, even for Trump, wouldn't be until after he was elected.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I know that Mark Levin's, we've got a few people, we saw that yesterday. And I don't know whether that's true or not, whether he could fast track it to the Supreme Court. Normally, you have to go through the process, and there's no guarantee the Supreme Court would hear it. They might say, no, let it go through the state process first.
Well,
let it. Now, again, we don't know because we're dealing in completely unknown territory here.
And that's the thing, is that when you talk about unprecedented, everything about this is unprecedented. So we don't know. We're not sure.
Because, you would have, in order to get to the felony that doesn't exist, you would have to convict on the misdemeanor that doesn't exist.
I mean,
it's just amazing. And so the president could not pardon the misdemeanors. Now Hochul could.
Right, and that's why I brought her up last hour.
As you did, yes.
Because if it were going to happen that way, Biden would need Hochul to be there, and at the announcement they would be standing together.
Right,
and that's how it would play out, and the entire party would have the talking points of, look, we go on and say he was found guilty, he was guilty, 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 he committed the crime, he was guilty, 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 and yes, he was pardoned, but he's guilty, 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 and you would never. That would never go away. He would be permanently guilty,
right?
But pardoned,
right? You don't, because of the kindness, generosity, and the uniting of the country mindset of Joe Biden and the rest of the Democrats that don't like how everything's being politicized these days.
Right. We want to pardon him so that we can defeat him in November and blah blah blah. We'll win, and we'll get on with the business of the country. You don't, in the announcement, you don't even bring up the election. It's just it's implied. You just we're going to get on with the business of the country, and we believe justice was served by finding him guilty, and then you move on. And you keep saying that, and all of your surrogates are on but he's guilty. He's guilty. He was found guilty, guilty, guilty. And there's never an opportunity for Trump. I mean, we can all say, well, that would have been overturned, but woulda, coulda, shoulda. And, that's the political benefit that the Democrats would have.
And I would, again, I'm not sure, what you can do in this case when it comes to, if he's pardoned, can he still? I'm assuming you can appeal to take the conviction away, which would then make the pardon moot. But that's not going to happen. Like I said, to the people that sent us the Mark Levin thing, I don't know if that's possible or not. The Supreme Court doesn't have to hear it.
Right. Yeah.
Can you fast track this to the Supreme Court because it's an emergency because of the presidential election, and this was lawfare used against him.
Right.
And Levin said he talked to a legal expert that he's known for a long time that said there's a possibility that could happen.
Yeah, Arthur Ferguson,
Yes.
Who was a clerk at the Supreme Court and who Mark refers to as one of the best lawyers, one of the smartest lawyers I know. That's a quote from Mark Levin. And so, yeah, it all makes sense in theory to us, even as laymen. The question is, would the Supreme Court do that? And I can't tell you that they would. I don't have any hope in the jury. This entire thing has been a sham, and I don't know what the Supreme Court would do. In theory, everything looks to be in check, what Mr. Ferguson wrote, but I don't know if they would. It's so fascinating to entertain that thought of a pardon, because there would be, even if he could go through, even if Trump's lawyers could go through the process, would they want to? Is it good enough for them to say, we know this would have been overturned, everybody knows it would have been overturned at the appellate level, and then you just leave it lay there? But, I mean, politically...
if you could do it, you'd want to do it. You'd want to say you're fighting this. You'd want to say the correct thing would be to fight it. We're still going to we're fighting this. We're going to take it up because this is all the politics of Biden. Biden is the one. Look, it's the same thing. Here's what I would say if I was a Republican. It's the same thing as what he's doing with energy right now, with gasoline. Mm-hmm. He's making it so we can't produce the amount of gasoline that we could to keep prices low. But at the same time, he's playing the other game of releasing it from the strategic reserve in order to lower it.
Right.
So he does things all the time. He'll do one thing, then do another. But basically, the entire gasoline thing, he's playing politics with, and he's playing politics here so he can claim that this is what I do if I was the lawyers of the president or any surrogate of the president or the president. He's doing this to play politics to show you he's uniting it, yet this is his game of lawfare from his Department of Justice. Yeah, this is the state of New York, but this is the plan of the Democrats and this. So we're fighting this, and to hell with his pardon. We're going to take this to the appeals court and get the damn thing overturned because they're playing games here and they're making up law, and Biden doesn't want the courts to be able to judge and then reject this mess that has been created by the Democrats. So, no, you fight it, and that's what I would, and that just came off the top of my head.
Well, because a pardon does not expunge the record.
No.
And so I would think that I don't see why you wouldn't be able to appeal even if pardoned. Pardon really is about the punishment, not about the record of of it. And so you're not expunging. If you're not expunging the record, then that defendant should have the right to expunge the record through the appeals process. I mean, that's what you do. You're throwing it out. You're overturning it. So. And that's what you would say. Look, our client has a right to appeal his name.
I'm looking at, this is Texas now. This is a Texas pardon. Does a pardon remove the offense from a criminal record? No, the arrest is not automatically expunged upon a full grant of a full pardon, but a person who is convicted and receives a full pardon is entitled to have it expunged off all arrest records relating to the conviction.
Mm-hmm. And I guess we would have to know if that applies in New York or in the case of Trump.
Well, I thought about this yesterday, but I fully didn't think about it till we got on the air and the break an hour ago.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay. Where does this go? So I didn't, it's just something that went through my mind and I didn't think of that.
Right. Yeah.
If I get, here we go. Let me see. Okay. It says if I get a presidential pardon with a crime I convicted of, show up in my permanent record. Okay. There's a number of, some people are saying no. Some people are saying yes. So, geez. Well, we're in untested territory here, are we not?
Well, the whole thing has been, again, I said it moments ago, but the whole thing is unprecedented.
Yeah.
It's a case about nothing. It's the Seinfeld case.
We'll do more.
Yeah.
We'll do more research, see if we can find the answer.
Oh, I'm curious. I'm curious all day long about this, just about the process. I have no idea. Nobody's even talking about it except us.
All right, now, if it's a hung jury, does Bragg bring the case back again?
Does he refile immediately?
Yeah.
Well, if you're Bragg, the only reason you're doing it is political. And I would think you would do it as soon as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, but it hasn't worked. That's the problem. It didn't work. It had the opposite effect. Because it was done for political reasons only. It hasn't worked politically. So do you just hang it up at that point and admit that you couldn't get the conviction? Or do you say, well, it was a hung jury, which means the good New Yorkers, the ones that believe in the law,
not the other clowns,
not the other clowns. Those were the Hochul clowns that didn't wish to convict. Jeez.
Oh my God!
I know
this is insane.
I know. 866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, so here it is. I went to the Department of Justice, and I found it. Does a presidential pardon expunge or erase a conviction for which a pardon was granted? No. Expungement is a judicial remedy that is rarely granted by the court and cannot be granted within the Department of Justice or by the president. Please also be aware that if you were granted a presidential pardon, the pardon offense would not be removed from your criminal record. Instead, both the federal conviction as well as the pardon would appear on your record. However, a pardon will facilitate removal of legal disabilities imposed because of the conviction and should lessen to some extent the stigma arising from the conviction. In addition, a pardon may be helpful in obtaining licenses, bonding, and employment. If you are seeking expungement of a federal offense, please contact the court of conviction. If you are seeking expungement of a state conviction, which is the Office of the Pardon Attorney, also does not have the authority to handle. States have different procedures for expunging a conviction or clearing the record of a criminal conviction. To pursue relief of state conviction, you should contact the governor or state attorney general in the state of which you were convicted for assistance. So there you go. So no, it is not expunged. So then the next point would be, can you go through the appeals court in order to overturn the conviction even if you received a pardon?
Well,
I would say yes, because
I would say that it's logical that you should be able to, but it's likely no one ever tried. We've never seen anything at this level. Because what would be the purpose of, if you've been pardoned, then at that point, then you're looking to, on the state level, any state charges, have those expunged. But there are, presidential pardons are rare, so we're in all new territory here. We're in all new territory. He should be able to, his attorney should be able to still go through the process to clear his name via the process. But most people don't even consider this, especially like with a state pardon, if someone is pardoned by the state, and on a presidential pardon, those are extremely rare. So it's fascinating to think about. It really is fascinating to think about. I'm guessing no one inside the halls at the White House or the Biden campaign has thought about it. And they likely will.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Looking at past Supreme Court issues here and precedent concerning a presidential pardon, you can refuse a presidential pardon. Yeah. Okay?
Yes.
What was the case you were looking at? Was it 1833 the case?
Yeah, I got to go back here. It was 1833 U.S. v. Wilson. And it held that a pardon can be rejected by the intended recipient and must be affirmatively accepted by to be officially recognized by the courts.
Does that mean if Trump refused the pardon, then he could be jailed? Or does the presidential pardon... Can you commute the sentence then?
Yeah, which would be you.
So you don't So
do that.
You commute the sentence, but
you can't. I don't know that you could reject. I don't know that Trump could reject the commutation of the sentence.
Right.
So, yeah.
In the case of Burdick versus the United States in 1915. The Supreme Court decided that a pardon is not an absolution of the crime, rather than it is an act of grace. A pardon carries an imputation of guilt, and accepting the pardon carries a confession of guilt. Burdick refused, this is a newspaper guy, Burdick refused President Wilson's pardon in 1915. He was a newspaper editor who had been jailed for contempt of court, but he refused to disclose his sources in a damaging scandal involving corruption in the Treasury Department. His refusal of the pardon also confirmed the power of the free press. Hundreds of newspapers published the Treasury corruption story, daring the U.S. government to throw them in jail with Burdick. Burdick was released. If a person is innocent, he or she should know the consequences of accepting a pardon, which is guilty as charged but off the hook for it. Yes, the pardoned person can still use the fifth if the answer could be used by state prosecutors for violation of state crimes and for which a presidential pardon does not cover. However, if the prosecutors, both federal and state, are after bigger fish, the federal prosecutor may ask the state to give the witness immunity to state criminal violations material to the case. So there you go.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see if anything. Yeah. So could he pardon him and commute the sentence? Because we're talking about what Biden is doing because he's desperate. This goes back to the article in Politico that the Democrats are in freak out mode, and that was even asked to Karine Jean-Pierre yesterday. Right? You guys in freak out mode.
Hey.
And of course, Politico is a liberal website, and so we just asked the question: would Biden attempt to pardon or commute the sentence, or would he pardon him and then Trump refuse a pardon, and then if Trump gets jail time, then commute the sentence at that point? Because the whole point is Biden needs something. He has nothing. There's nothing going his way. And the lawfare against Trump is not going his way. So would he do anything to say, I'm trying to unite the nation, and, Trump was found guilty? Well, I see. I don't think it's going to change anything in the election if Trump is found guilty. I think it will get people even angrier.
Yeah, I think it certainly is going to anger a lot of people. Here's the difference. A number of people, a significant portion of people are not paying attention to the day-to-day. They know it's something about paying off a stripper. That's what they would tell you. You know what the case is about. Yeah, he illegally paid a stripper. I could hear somebody saying that right now, which is not the case. He didn't break any law. But the point is that people aren't following this like the O.J. trial. Number one, there's no cameras in there. Number two, it's Trump. And so it's like, yeah, well, okay, it's one more case. And they probably look at it and go, yeah, it probably is political. But again, they're not paying attention. If Trump is found guilty by a jury, it's global news. Instantly, everybody is going to get caught up on this story. Instantly. And that's the difference. That's where I was saying about Mershon, if he cared about the effect of all of this, and I don't know, I mean, I think he, or if he sees it this way where Trump becomes a martyr, because he will definitely, there will be outrage over this whole thing, then what you do is, you abide by the request, you grant the request of the defense, but that's not going to happen. It's going to go to a jury now. And the difference will be if it is a guilty verdict, everybody in the world is going to learn that a former president was found guilty of a crime. It's not actually true, but the jury found him guilty of a crime or crimes. And that's a big deal. I think the civil case was a pretty big deal, but I think this one takes it to a whole new level. Because then it's, okay, now you can add this on top of all the other cases, and the world will look at us going.
So are you saying that the public, which overwhelmingly believes all these cases together are political, if there's a guilty verdict, would say it's no longer political?
Oh, no. What I'm saying is they'll be much more familiar with the case. I think people are paying attention kind of on the sidelines many people are paying attention kind of on the sidelines. We know we kind of know it's politically driven. It's just they're just going after him because they don't like the guy. Whether people like him or not, they see this as political, most definitely. But they're looking at this, they're not following it like walks. They're not following it like our audience every single day. What changes it is a guilty verdict. What changes that is everybody's going to get caught up on the details of this case. Globally, it becomes a story. Because our allies are looking at this and saying, oh my gosh, if this has happened in the U.S., they're a banana republic. The confidence in the U.S. is depleted even further, and the U.S. justice system. It's going to be one of those things that really has a. I don't think Mershon and Alvin Bragg know or care about the global impact of this if he's found guilty. But everybody will be keenly aware of the case and get caught up on the details. And that's where it creates the martyr in that people then will have their views confirmed that this is political, but then they'll know exactly how wrong this whole thing was. Because they'll look at it and say, well what did he do? Well, guilty of what? And we're Googling, and then all of a sudden we're doing our own fact checking. This goes back to the Politico story. Everything's kind of related to the Politico story of freakout mode. You talk about freakout mode. Well, the liberal media hasn't been able to pen anything on, a law on this whole thing. When the 34 counts came down, I remember that day. The mainstream media even was looking at each other going, you guys see anything? Because we don't see anything.
Okay, I looked it up. I did more research. A pardon, you can reject. A commutation of sentence, you cannot.
No, that's and that's. I think I said that during the break, and that's also what I found during the break. I knew because the sentence is, let's say, whether it's a federal or a state level, you're commuting a sentence. A governor might tell you, we're doing this because we need to clear the prisons of people who committed nonviolent crimes, and the taxpayers is paying for them their incarceration and blah 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 blah.
I just wanted to find the precedent, which was Biddy versus Perovich back in 1927. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So where you cannot refuse the commutation.
Yeah, the commutation is about the sentence itself.
Right. So he could do both.
Right.
He could, and now the sentence, you probably couldn't do that until he was actually sentenced. But if he refused the pardon, I'm refusing the pardon because I'm not guilty and this is going to be overturned, and the president would still fight it, and then you can't. I don't know if he could do a commutation now. Say, well, whatever sentence he gets, we're pardoning him, and there's no whatever sentence he gets, we are going to commute that sentence.
Yeah, maybe.
And just interesting. I mean, it just came up in my thought a little while ago, so we just decided to investigate it if Biden did come out to try, because, and this isn't because he actually cares about Trump or uniting the nation. It's the fact that, and we'll get to the Politico article here in a couple of minutes, that just says the Democrats are in full freakout mode, and that is from a liberal publication,
right?
Not a conservative publication,
right.
That they're in freakout mode. And so in order to get the Democrats out of freakout mode, does he pardon Trump, and then Trump refused it? And he goes, well, I'm going to commute the sentence. If Trump continues with this and he's found, and if he's gets sentenced, whatever the sentence is, I will commute.
Mm-hmm.
Does he do that and then saying, I'm trying to unite the nation? And at the same time, though, he can still say, look, I tried to, Trump was guilty. We tried to pardon him. He refused it. He's still guilty. Court of law, court of law, court of law. I don't know how they'd spin that, though. All interesting. Just all interesting stuff.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Just inquiring minds
It
wanting
is.
to know. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Well, I guess we'll see, won't we? In the next couple of days, what will happen?
Going to be crazy one way or the other.
Just interesting, because that's the one thing I was, and it all came because I was read the Politico story about the Democrats being freak out and the White House being in freak out mode over the president's reelection chances. And I just thought, okay, what would get him? Would he think out of desperation would get him? And again, he always makes the wrong choice.
Now, here's the thing.
But would he actually come out and pardon and then say he's going to commute Trump's sentence if he's sentenced if Trump refuses the pardon? And again, we just went through the precedent of that for presidential pardons, and
again, we're in all new territory.
Yeah.
But the political effect of, he's been found guilty, he's guilty, still lives for them, even if it's only temporary for the Democrats, if it comes back guilty.
Oh yeah, they just wanted
because the appeal is going to take a while. It's going to take quite a while, and they get to use that as long as they can use that through November 5th. They don't care. Everything else beyond that, he's guilty. The one thing I guess that you would have is that unless he were to reject it or, something like that, they could say permanently guilty, and because he's been pardoned and all that.
Well, it's not so much that it's the fact that Biden can say, and his surrogates can say, I'm attempting to unite the nation.
Yeah.
Trump is guilty. The court found him guilty. He will not accept the pardon. Mm-hmm. We've done everything we can to unite the country. Now, does that work against you? It really doesn't work against you in a situation where everything that Biden does works against him on every issue.
Does it win many people over? Does it look like the Hail Mary? That it would be. It would be a political Hail Mary.
Well, everything is right now for Biden.
Yeah, exactly.
I read
but this is a presidential pardon.
For
Trump.
I read again over the weekend that it's like it's going to happen. Biden's going to issue an executive order to close down the border.
Yeah,
and then claim, see, Congress couldn't do it. Trump couldn't do it. I closed down the border after having it open for such a long time.
The problem is that Biden would make the mistake, and then it would be closing down the northern border with Canada, not the southern border where the problems are.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. All right, so here's the audio from Piers Morgan, and this is Hollywood actor Dennis Quaid on talking about Trump and why he will vote for Trump.
What do you think of Trump?
I myself, I think I think I'm going to vote for him.
Really?
Yeah, in the next election. Yes, I am.
Are you ready for the blowback?
Well, yeah.
Which inevitably comes
Well,
with Trump.
you know, I think in this election, everybody's got to, I think they're going to take a side or whatever, but it just seems to me, it just makes sense. I was ready not to vote for Trump until what I saw is more than politics. I see a weaponization of our justice system.
Yeah.
And a challenge to our Constitution, us as Americans, that I don't think we're going to have. And, you know, Trump is the most investigated person probably in the history of the world. And they haven't been able to really get him on anything.
And this whole Stormy Daniels thing, to me, is so kind of pathetic. I mean, whatever happens, as we sit here now, that we're going to find out in a few days whether he's guilty or not guilty. I don't think it matters.
It doesn't.
If anything, if he's found guilty, it'll probably help him more.
Yeah, even the way you just said it made it seem like that trial, or guilty or not guilty, is about Stormy Daniels,
Right.
which it's not.
No, it's not.
And in fact, what is the crime? I still can't figure it out.
Well, well,
the crime, neither can they, because they haven't said what it is. They took a misdemeanor that had run out of its time, and you know, trying to turn it into a felony, and but they won't even say what that is.
Do you have to like Trump to vote for him?
No.
No. Of course you don't.
It's a silly question, or maybe it was a question that was making a point. I don't know what was in Piers Morgan's mind, but we have entertained that thought and actually talked about it. The adoration in 2008 for Barack Obama. Nobody knew who he was. Nobody. There was the euphoria of electing the first black president. But then the celebrity status that was being built, you know, and it was, and the left often does this. They build these personalities that, you know, where you're supposed to be the rock star. I think the rock star days are over. I don't know who would be a rock star. Oh, wait, I know one. We talked about this recently. Maybe rock star is not the right term, but if you're going to have one politically, Trump.
Mm-hmm.
When Trump is in a room, look at the people around him. And the day he took pizza to the firefighters there in New York, you saw the smiles on their face. I mean, he is a celebrity. He was a celebrity for a long time before he became president. So there's that, and it's kind of built in. Except also, he, by comparison to Biden especially, looks far more presidential than Biden has ever looked, in my opinion. But it isn't about liking this person or disliking that person. I don't know any of them. The people come and go. It's the ideas. And so who of these people best represents the ideas I believe in and want implemented as policy? That's what it comes down to. Who's going to do my bidding? So, I have no idea. You know, I don't know what they're like behind closed doors. I really don't. That's the thing. There really doesn't have to be that adoration. One thing that I would say that would kind of be the opposite of that question or that point now is the erosion of the toxicity of Donald Trump. It's not gone, but it's not what it used to be. There's still hatred for Donald Trump, of course. But it's not what it used to be. It is not the Democratic Party's Trump card anymore. Will it motivate people to vote? Yep. But it won't motivate them the way it did before, or as many, and I'm convinced of that. I could be proven wrong. November 5th will tell us. Or February of next year, whenever we get the results. It's just you don't see it. And the reason you don't, or indications that you don't, signs that you don't see it anymore, or that it's depleting, that toxicity of Donald Trump, is what you saw over the weekend. The pushback and the questioning of the transportation secretary, Pete Buttigieg, on EVs. The media's not afraid anymore when they make points and go, well, he's right. Can we credit Barry Weiss? Was she the first? Because she came out and she said, look, I was wrong about Trump. Trump was right.
Well, what I find interesting is the first thing that came out of Dennis Quaid's mouth was not inflation, wasn't the economy.
Right.
It's not the border.
Right.
It was, as he said, it's bigger than the issues for him. It's a weaponization of law enforcement,
the Constitution,
the judicial system, and the Constitution against Donald Trump. So it's actually not about Trump.
Right.
It's what the Democrats are actually doing to the legal system out there, where they are attempting to make up crimes in order to get to him.
Right.
And keep the information away from the jury. Having a rogue judge and a rogue prosecutor do this in order to win an election. That's upsetting to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And it's upsetting to people that used to vote liberal, that are old school liberals, that are saying, what in the world is going on here?
Well, and, that's it. Because you and I don't believe people are stupid. Are they willfully ignorant? Do they look the other way? Do they go out of their way to not pay attention? Yeah, a number of people do that. But they're not stupid. So my point earlier in the show, and I've talked about it before, and that's if he's found guilty, that grabs everybody's attention. Whoa. And then, as such, drives curiosity. So for the folks that weren't paying attention, even though if you ask them a question, hey, do you think it's politically motivated? Yeah, it's politically motivated, no doubt. They didn't have all the details. And then they look at this and then they kind of break it down themselves. I really don't understand. And the left isn't going to have any, they don't have them now. They've never had these panelists, the legal experts that would break it down. Here's where he broke the law according to the evidence presented by prosecution. Here's where he broke the law clearly. There's none of that because it doesn't exist.
What I wonder is what happens if, and I think there's a great chance of this happening, a hung jury. I agree with Jonathan Turley. Yeah. I don't think he's going to be acquitted.
No, I don't.
I think the best chance is a hung jury. If you're talking about those two, even though I do put in the mix a conviction because of what the judge has done, what the judge has allowed, that he should not have allowed.
Right.
And I think, Turley, if you have every one of those jurors believing, every one of them believing that Trump committed a campaign violation because the prosecution has kept telling them that, and the judge will not say, no, he has not. There's no evidence that he committed it, as long as the judge allowed that and wouldn't allow a election expert in, that is the key, because Turley believes that every juror believes that Trump actually committed a violation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether that's whether that's the crime the judge, or excuse me, that the prosecution is going after, who knows? The jury might be confused on that. God, what a mess. Complete mess.
Well, it's, and I think that's by design. I mean, you get in and you it's so chaotic. It is such a mess. And then you try and put it into one big heaping pile for the jury to sort out, and they can't sort through it. I've said for years, you start on the wrong premise. Everything that follows may sound logical, but it's not, because it began on that wrong premise. And that is the case here of everything presented by prosecution. And that's how they approached it. And how Merchan, the judge, helped prosecution along the way in every way, including shutting down Robert Costello, the witness. It's criminal, in my opinion, the way this entire thing was happened and went down. The prosecution lied to the jury, and the judge supported those lies and also lied to the jury as a result of that support and helping basically prosecution get their case done. And I think that's it. You go in and you just throw it all in a big heaping pile. It's like back in the day when Mom would try and make her own version of Hamburger Helper. She would just, grab whatever leftovers from the fridge and make a casserole out of it, put it in a bowl, and all the kids sitting at the table going, what is this? What's this called, Mom? And I think the jury's looking at this case going, what do we do? Well, he said this. Prosecution said this. And then I think the best you can hope for, if you're Trump, a hung jury. I honestly believe that's the best he can hope for here. And then what? Does Alvin Bragg, go on to file this again?
I don't see how he can. But then again, they'll just
I don't see how he
double,
brought
tripling
this
down.
case. So it's
you
who
don't
knows,
know.
right?
It's so delusional.
Yeah.
It's so lack of connecting any type of dots.
You don't know what to do with
that you would expect that they don't care. They don't care.
Right.
I think they would sit there and say, well, and I said this earlier, that Kathy Hochul would come out and say, well, the non-clowns found him guilty. The clowns found him.
Yeah.
We're ready to find him not guilty. 866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at JJ Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. In order to manage speed, you need to understand the 4 factors involved in stopping a vehicle. Perception distance is the distance a vehicle travels from the time you see a hazard until your brain recognizes it. The perception time for an alert driver is approximately 3/4 of a second. Reaction distance is the distance a vehicle travels from the time your brain tells your foot to move from the accelerator until your foot hits the brake pedal. The average driver has a reaction time of 3/4 of a second. Brake lag distance also needs to be taken into account. When operating a vehicle with air brakes, it takes about half a second for the mechanical operation to take place. Finally, braking distance is the distance it takes a vehicle to stop once the brakes are applied. Braking distance is affected by the weight, length, and speed of the vehicle, as well as road condition. This tip was brought to you by JJ Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I'm just reading the article, Politico. Dems in full-blown freak out over Biden. One advisor to major Democratic donors keeps a running list of reasons Biden could lose. The pervasive sense of fear has settled in at the highest levels of the Democratic Party over President Joe Biden's reelection prospects. even among office holders and strategists who had previously expressed confidence about the coming battle with Trump. All year, Democrats have been on a joyless and exhausting grind through the 2024 election. But now, nearly 5 months from the election, anxiety has morphed into a palatable trepidation, according to more than a dozen party leaders and operatives. And the gap between what Democrats will say on TV or in print and what they'll text their friends has only grown as worries have surged about Biden's prospects. You don't want to be that guy who was on the record saying, we're doomed.
Well, here's the thing. It's so bad right now, Dennis Quaid and Randy Quaid agree on who should be the next president.
Okay. I just see Randy Quaid now in his jet fighter.
Yeah.
Going right up, I'll put it this way, right up the bowels of the alien spacecraft.
Come on, boys.
Hello, boys.
Hello, boys. I love that. I love it.
But you don't want to be the guy who's on the record saying we're doomed or the campaign's bad or Biden's making mistakes. Nobody wants to be that guy, said a Democratic operative in close touch with the White House. But Biden's stubbornly poor polling and the stakes of the election are creating the freak out, he said. This isn't, oh, my God, Mitt Romney might become president. It's, oh, my God, the democracy might end.
This is a De Niro sized freak out.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so silly. You know, he's never going to leave. He's never going to leave.
And they say despite everything, Trump is running ahead of Biden in most battleground states. He's raised far more money in April, and the landscape may only become worse for Democrats with Trump's hush money trial concluding and another, this one involving the president's son, set to begin in Delaware. The concern has metastasized in recent days as Trump jaunted to some of the country's most liberal territories, including New Jersey and New York, to woo Hispanic and black voters as he boasted improbably that he would win in those areas. While he's long lagged Biden in cash on hand, Trump's fundraising outpaced the president by $25 million last month and included a record-setting $50.5 million haul from the event in Palm Beach, Florida. One advisor to major Democratic Party donors provided a running list that has been shared with funders of nearly 24 reasons why Biden could lose, ranging from immigration and high inflation to the president's age, the unpopularity of Vice President Kamala Harris, and the presence of third-party candidates like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. You might also want to look at Dennis Quaid's reason, lawfare.
Yep.
Donors ask me on an hourly basis what I think, the advisor said, calling it it's so much easier to show them, so while they read it, I can pour a drink. The advisor said the list of why we could win is so small, I don't even need to keep the list on my phone.
Wow.
On our website, RedEyeRadioShow.com. Show info with stations, podcasts, and more. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose, if you can't listen live overnight, to one of our great radio stations all across the country.
Yeah.
A few minutes after the show is done, the podcast is up.
Yep.
So there you
Yep.
go.
And we thank all of our day listeners.
Yes.
Daytime people.
Mm-hmm. Welcome.
We got a pretty large audience there.
We certainly do.
Yeah. Very grateful for that.
They love us. They love us.
Well, at least they listen to us.
Thank you, Sally Field.
You really love me.
You really love me. You really love me.
Yeah.
I cannot get through the day without your love. That's why I chose talk radio.
Because I want to be loved.
Because I want to be loved.
I just want to be loved.
Right.
So I got into talk radio. Oh my gosh!
Well, when Sue, who was the owner of the radio station that I work for, said you're going to be the talk show host, that was a huge concern.
Yeah.
I had success, success, minor success,
Right.
in stand-up comedy where people laughed.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also bombed, especially one time where I bombed completely.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I hear Seinfeld talk about the fact of, when you watch a stand-up comedy show, it's like, okay, everybody's in the good mood. Everybody's there. Everybody's ready for you. It starts. And he said, that's what it seems like, but that's not what it is. When you walk onto the stage, it's complete silence, and you realize it's up to me. I'm the one that creates that atmosphere for laughing.
When you're, even if you're marquee, I've heard them say, even if they're showing up because, and you've been around for years, you could just hit the flat zone,
And so that can be, Seinfeld talks about the one that still bothers him, where he started telling a joke and someone went, heard it.
I was hosting one night and I was getting these laughs and I was like, oh, I'm crushing it. I'm going to have my own sitcom next week. And one of the marquee comedians, the ones that people actually come to see, was behind me, and he had props. And he was anticipating all of my punches. So anytime I'd lay down a punch, he would pull one of his props up and behind me. I didn't know he was behind me even. He was kind of setting up something, and I was about to introduce him. And so he would pull something out that, looked odd and funny and wasn't saying anything, made no noise every time I got to a punchline, and the audience was laughing at him, not me. And I was like, and then because I introduced him, and then he comes up there and, he does, it was I think prop comedians at that time were really, Carrot Top, all of them, Gallagher, Gallagher had kind of peaked by then, but it's, I introduced him, and then I had no idea until the club manager told me about 5 minutes later. I was like, oh my gosh, that's horrible.
For me, it was the fact that, I never wanted to do, stand-up was never on my radar.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, what was the show with Star Search?
Oh, yeah.
With Ed McMahon.
Yeah.
And it was a regional Star Search competition when I was working in Florida.
Sinbad. Remember that?
Yeah.
That's where he came from.
Did he? Sinbad, did he really?
Yeah. He was doing a little bit of stand-up before, but his rise really started with Star Search, yeah.
And so they were having like a regional Star Search thing,
mm-hmm.
and they wanted me to be the MC, and they said, so what you do is, you come out, you do 20 minutes of comedy. What the hell are you talking about?
20 minutes.
You do, get out to 15, 20 minutes of stand-up, and then, then you'll be the MC to introduce everybody.
Mm-hmm.
all the acts or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hosting, yeah.
What are you talking about? I don't do stand-up. Well, sure you do. We hear you in the radio every day. I was doing a morning rock show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We hear you every morning. Of course you do.
Yeah.
That's not stand-up comedy. Sure it is. Yeah. They don't know the difference. They think that if you do it on the radio, you can do it. So I really did. I had like 3 months warning that I had to do this.
Yeah.
So I lived on a house on the beach.
Right. Right.
And so I had the window wide open. The beach was there, and I took my big speakers, and I had a mixing board because I had a DJ mixing board and speakers that I went out and did, DJing. And I just took that and turned the speakers around and made it so there wasn't, a lot of feed, so there's no feedback. But I did my stand-up comedy with the microphone. I was like Kramer when Jerry went away, and he's got the microphone in his hand, imitating Jerry Seinfeld. I had all my material, and I did that for 3 months until I got, what I thought was 20 minutes worth of material. So then what I did was, the day that it was started, put on my best suit and everything else, and the morning, and then wrote everything down, not the sentences, but just the topics that I was going to bring up, and pasted that on the floor of the stage.
Right.
Rock bands do that with what the next song's going to be.
Yeah.
I don't know if stand-ups actually do that.
They do. And some use teleprompters. Some use teleprompters, actually. Yeah.
Some stand-ups, really?
Yeah. It's very few, and it's usually only for taping a special.
Okay.
One of them, famously, is Dennis Miller. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was, illegal.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because he went on a rant about Obama one time in one of his stand-up specials, and it says the guy can't operate without using a teleprompter, says the comedian who's currently using a teleprompter. It's very funny.
He said that?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow, I never knew that. So I figured I was cheating, but I didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what happened that night is what made me do a little bit of stand-up comedy in the future.
Right.
Because it's what Johnny Carson said. If they buy the premise, they buy the bit.
The premise, in fact, often is you'll hear comedians setting up a joke and you know where they're going.
Mm-hmm.
So the premise starts to be, you'll hear the chuckles building.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you go in. Someone said it the other day. Oh, John Mulaney was talking to Letterman on Letterman's Netflix. My next guest needs no introduction or whatever that show is. And it's really the only one I watched all the way through because I love John Mulaney. And Mulaney said, I love the building that premise because often the audience is coming along with you. They're coming along with you, and then boom.
Well, that wasn't I had no idea about a joke about the premise there. It was the premise that 75% of the people, there's about 1,000 people in this auditorium for the regional star search. And so they were my listeners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they already thought that's the premise. They already thought I was funny. They listened to me.
Right.
So I went out there and just as soon as the stage opened up or the curtains opened up, and it was just like being, I've never been on the Tonight Show, but I mean it would be just like being, you're standing backstage right there. Okay, go. Curtains open. I go out there. Everybody's going crazy. They're standing up cheering and everything else, and I'm like, damn, am I good? And I haven't even opened up my mouth. And then my mind went completely blank.
Yeah.
And Seinfeld said that happened to him the first time out.
There's a video of him forgetting the punchline. He's workshopping material.
Whoa.
And it's from recent years, actually.
Wow.
And he's like, oh, I forgot what I was going to say there. I forgot and then someone said something in the audience.
Uh-huh.
It was a small club. And he says, oh, that's so frustrating. And it was just one of those moments. I'm like, man, if it can happen to him, it can happen to anybody.
Well, then I went blank, but all I know is everybody was going nuts, and I looked down, but it was sort of a blur, the whole thing. When Seinfeld says you don't feel your feet and you really don't feel your body, you really don't. Mm-hmm. And especially I was getting great response. I had no idea why. And then this whole Star Search thing ended. I said goodnight, told a couple more jokes. Everybody's dying. Next thing you know, I'm signing. There's 100 people waiting for my autograph. I mean, I was as high as when I went in the F-16 with the Thunderbirds and
you could see the curvature of the earth. You were so high.
Yes, exactly. I remember going out and meeting my buddies at Hog's Breath Saloon that used to be in Fort Walton Beach. I don't know if they have it in Destin now, but I went there and they go, hey, did you do good? Yeah. Hey, how about a shot and a beer? Give me a water. I don't need a damn thing. I was just the adrenaline. I'm like, can I buy this adrenaline stuff and inject this into my system on a consistent basis? What do you want? Cocaine, fentanyl, acid, adrenaline, man. That's the best.
Right.
And so then any stand up I did was just very few and far between. Probably I did another in a year, maybe twice, but it was still good. Then I went to Texas, but didn't do stand up for about 6 months. And when I did that time, that was just at a station event. And somebody threw something at me. It was a contest we were having. I wasn't really doing stand up. Somebody said something to me, And I just went ad lib for like 45 minutes, and everybody was rolling in hysteria. And my boss came up to me and said, "I never knew you were a stand-up." I'm like, neither did I.
Well, that's the thing is that I've done that before at events, and then I think to myself, yeah, but could I do that every night?
Well, no. Then the reality. Then I moved back to New York.
Yeah.
And I wasn't in radio for a little bit, and I decided to go to, I'm going to work on this. Why not? Go to the amateur night.
Open mic, yeah.
Open mic.
Yeah.
Completely bombed.
Yeah.
I didn't get the only thing.
It's always a tough crowd on open mic. It's brutal.
It was
because you're there to prove
the loudest.
You're auditioning basically.
The loudest sound ever.
Silence
is pure silence.
Or even worse, the glasses in the back behind the bar that are clinking. It's like, and everybody can hear it. It's like, it feels like closing time, and it's only 7 p.m.
And this was at a club in Hurdle. There's a guy there, still a comedian there, very well known, Airborne Eddie, and he was the general manager of the club.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's I can hear him laughing in the background.
Yeah,
he's like way in the back laughing.
Yeah.
And he's the only one. There's one person laughing. That was actually worse because everybody up front, and I could hear, I knew it was his laugh.
Because he's laughing at you, not with you.
No, he actually liked my material. He just said, you need to connect with the audience. He said the stuff you were saying went right over their head. He goes, it didn't go over my head. I knew where you were going.
Yeah.
They didn't understand. He goes, you've got to understand. You've got to play. You just can't do your stuff. You've got to play to what the audience wants in that area that you're in on that night.
Nate Bargatze is very good at this. Most good. John Mulaney talked about it recently, but you want to connect locally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nate Bargatze, there's on his YouTube channel and Instagram and everything else, there's some shorts of him. I think he was in San Antonio recently. He talked about your lanes, your driving lanes on your highway. Your lanes aren't very wide, and it was a funny joke, but he was connecting with them on that. And Nate talked about recently the value of a good host. And a host can make money now. If that's what you're good at, you can really make money at it. You've got to do a few jokes, but you can really, and that's the thing. You warm up the crowd. That's the idea. You got to make that connection with the crowd. That's the job of the host.
Well, that's the point that I was trying to make here about this article in Politico and related to stand-up comedy. You've got to understand who your audience is, and the Democrats don't. And in this article, they don't. It's Democrats talking to Democrats. Mm-hmm. They're not looking at, well, wait a minute, who you were attempting to appease. And they talk here about the fact that, in the Political article that a Biden campaign advisor granted anonymity to speak freely and stressed that the president's team never made any indication that Trump's hush money trial would help or hurt him. Yes, they did.
Yeah.
They did. Of course they did. Instead, the advisor contended that Trump will be forced to defend cutting back abortion rights, attacking democracy, and advancing corporate interests as president. As clueless as I was going out that day, I learned Democrats don't learn.
No.
They don't learn.
No.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. That's all I was trying to do is when I was talking about doing stand-up comedy, how I bombed because I didn't know what I didn't know what the audience wanted. You have to be able to read an audience or have a clue.
Yeah, read the room.
Or read the room or understand how to. And the Democrats just can't read the room. And this whole Political article, which says they're freaking out, and then basically in the article, we're not really freaking out. Because the lawfare thing, really, we've never taken into consideration. That was never a political thing whatsoever. And Biden will win on abortion if they don't confront what their problems are, which are inflation and the border.
Yeah, right.
And foreign policy and lawfare.
Right.
If they don't confront why they are while they are, they're never going to learn.
Exactly.
They won't win.
Right.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.